Hello, everyone, and welcome to Screen Chronicles. I'm Steve. With me, as always, is Colby, Bartholomew Griffin. And today we have a special guest on today. You probably know her as the director of two of our favorite episodes from The Last Kingdom. Today we have Sarah Gorman on the Screen Chronicles.
Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Hi, lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Good, yeah, good. Coping with lockdown, getting through it. But yeah, all very good. How are you guys?
We're doing good. We're doing our podcast thing. And what do you do during the day to keep yourself busy?
A lot of homeschooling.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which I'm not a natural at.
No?
Say.
No.
But yeah, that's keeping me busy. The days just go, and you've got the schoolwork you've got to get through, and suddenly the day's gone,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're very interested in learning about how you got to where you are as a director. So could you walk us through a little bit of your career path?
The sort of short answer is my background is I did a postgraduate course at the BBC.
Okay.
And sort of moved around the BBC, which was great, and then landed in their promo department, which meant I wrote and directed their promos, which was really great.
Very cool.
And then I felt like I needed to get better at working with actors, so I went and worked in theatre for a bit.
Gotcha.
And then slowly, it takes a long time, made my way into TV drama. Mainly some comedy, but mainly drama.
Cool. What was your first project you worked on for drama?
I think it was a hospital drama called Holby, which is a sort of regular Tuesday night, BBC One, 9 o'clock, a classic. It's a really good show to learn your ropes, actually.
Okay.
Really good show to learn the ropes because it's fast and you have to be super planned. And I think the week before I'd done that, I was shooting an advert where we had, a whole day to shoot 30 seconds worth. Where then, the next week you go into drama, and it's on a drama like that, it's a day to shoot 8 pages. So you sort of have to hit, but coming from advertising, really, you're planned. You're used to storyboarding everything, and you've got your shot list. So yeah, that's the potted version.
Gotcha.
Of how I got into it, and then you go from project to project and work out what you like to do and what you're good at, and then see where it all takes you.
Very cool, very cool. And I bet that planning really kind of helped with things maybe like the Battle of Tetton Hall and some epic things like that.
Yeah, I mean, with that battle, there was literally, I drew up a battle plan for the battle.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously it takes weeks and weeks and weeks to prep something like that. But I remember, a few days before we started, we went to that field with the crew, and I had the big battle plan of what was taking place where, all sort of, labelled up, and we could see where each story beat was going to happen. So everyone had an idea of where it would be and what we'd shoot in which order. Yeah, so it's just sort of, you just have to be so planned with those scenes.
Did you know that the trench was going to already be like a main part of the battle as far as like the beginning trap? Was that something already planned?
No, actually, in the script it was a bridge. So in this script it was a bridge that they would lure the Danes over, and they rigged the bridge so it would collapse. But we spent weeks and weeks and we couldn't find the right location because although, we could build a bridge, I needed a huge space for all these 5 armies to come. So we could find a bridge, but there wasn't enough areas for the other people to come from. So I went to look at the location we ended up using, and we were thinking about maybe burning something there. And when I was there, I just thought, what they could do? They could maybe dig a trench. And because the key thing was that it was about Uhtred using the natural environment, being clever there.
Being cunning,
so,
right? And,
and I just thought, well, they could do that. There was a sort of natural dip in the landscape.
Right.
I thought if we could, I had to do a bit of selling on that idea, but they went with it in the end. So it was great.
I thought it was so cool. I mean, when we first saw the trailer, that was, I think, what got a lot of people hyped for the season too, was just seeing those horses falling into this trench. That was something I mean, I'm sure has been in other battles, but it's something I haven't seen in recent years. I've seen a lot of fire, blocking people and stuff. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen a disguised trench with the green layering. It's a very unique idea.
It's when you're sometimes when you're up against the wall and we've been looking for so long for this river, it's just like, what else can it be? What else can it be? And I just suddenly thought, well, maybe that. I didn't know, as a director, you sort of should never think about the practicalities first. Just think of the idea and then think, can it be done? So I just thought about the idea and then spoke to those, the other amazing HODs, and we worked out a way to do it.
Amazing.
And not a single horse was hurt. So that's good.
Yeah, I think we saw some behind the scenes footage, and it looks like you guys rigged up a crazy contraption with I don't know what kind of material those horses were, but and then kind of flung them into the trench.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a real mix of, obviously lots of visual effects, and the horses would lie down in the trench and could get up, and that was brilliant. So the horse person would make sure they're all lying down, and then you see them getting up, and that just helps enormously to sell that idea. To
sell it, yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. So backing up, you talk about having to sell the idea of that concept of the trench, but backing up to before you were even involved in the show, how did you become involved with Last Kingdom? Did you kind of have to sell a concept or anything to the executive producers?
No, what happened was I did a show for the company called Jamestown, which is a fantastic show, and I loved it. And I did that the year before in Budapest with them, and it was just a dream, actually, a really dream job. And they just asked me if I fancied doing Last Kingdom after that.
Cool.
So it was great. Yeah, so and I'd watched Last Kingdom and loved it, and women in action, they often the paths don't cross, so I jumped at the opportunity to do that.
Very cool.
Well, now looking at your resume now, I mean, it seems like you're involved in a lot, or not a lot, but some other big sort of upcoming medieval shows, or Sword and Shield, however you want to describe it. You're in the season 2 of The Witcher. I love the Witcher franchise. And then the new series, Cursed.
I'm very excited about this.
So is that a genre you really like then, or how did you get into that?
It's sort of what I found myself in, just recently over the last few years. And I think for me, it's always about the story. The genre is the genre. For me, it's about the story. And I got sent the scripts for Cursed while I was doing Last Kingdom, actually. And they were interested in me directing the final 2 episodes, which are, another big battle, a huge action-packed end. And they sent me all the 10 episodes and said, just don't feel you need to read them all. Just read maybe the first 2 and your 2. And I was filming while I was coming back from the battle, and these scripts came through, but I couldn't. They drew me in immediately. I just read them all. They're such great scripts.
Oh boy.
And a joy to do, and the Arthurian legend, but told through the Lady of the Lakes, she becomes the Lady of the Lake. It's just not, I've not seen that before.
Yeah.
Boy.
It definitely looks like a really cool, interesting twist on the whole King Arthur thing, which another big fan of that whole mythology and all that.
So do you think Cursed is a show that Last Kingdom fans are going to be able to connect to?
Yeah, I do. I think it's, it's that reimagining, and it's fantasy, where I think, Last Kingdom is rooted in history, actually. It's so fresh, and it's got really interesting themes to it. I think they will, and it's Frank Miller, it's Tom Wheeler and Frank Miller. So it's got a really strong visual look to it, which cool. We sort of, certainly for me, to be able to sit with him and say, how do you see this scene? Could you draw me a few frames? It was just like a dream come true, and to sort of, I was sort of inspired by his drawings. I do think they will, and it's there's lots of action, but there's lots of emotion too, and I think that's what it has in common with Last Kingdom.
Very cool. Well, we're strongly considering covering some episodes of Cursed, just like we did Last Kingdom too. So we're very excited. That's coming out in, what's today, the 9th? 17th, right?
Yeah, 17th. Yeah, and I did the final 2.
Yes, final 2 episodes. Is it another 10 episodes in it? Or,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, it's 10. I hope you enjoy it. It's great. It's really, really good to work on.
Were you able to wrap up to The Witcher, the episode you shot there before all the quarantine happened, or is that?
No, I was in prep for The Witcher, so I go back in a few weeks, which I can't wait for. It's really exciting.
Yeah, we'll be excited for that. We enjoyed season 1, so we'll be excited to watch season 2, and we'll be looking for your episodes in that as well. Do you know what episodes you're directing in that yet?
Yeah, I'm doing 3 and 4. So there are 8 episodes, and I'm doing 3 and 4.
Great. So I think that's 2021. That's coming out. It's supposed to, at least, and we'll be definitely looking forward to that as well.
Speaking of episodes 3 and 4, though, you directed 3 and 4 for The Last Kingdom. And those were hands down, and I'm not just saying this because we're talking to you, my favorite episodes from the whole season. Yeah. I mean,
great.
You have the big battle like we were talking in episode 4, but episode 3 was probably one of the most emotional episodes from probably the whole series, definitely the whole season, but definitely I think up there for the whole series.
I'm curious, since you say you were a fan, what was your reaction when you found out that one of the first moments in one of your episodes, you had to kill off one of the most beloved characters? Well,
as a director, I was really looking forward to working with Ian because he's amazing, you know. Yeah. I get him for a scene, you know. So that was a bit disappointing. But when I read the script and the guys at Carnival had told me, that one's it's hugely action packed, but we've got this really delicate emotional journey too. And then when I read the script, I just felt you couldn't ask for 2 more perfect scripts, you know. So I get to do all that playing with the battle stuff and the shipwreck at sea, but then deal with all that emotional stuff too, which is the favourite, my favourite part of it. Yeah. And even in the battle, for me, it was about bringing out those emotional moments for people.
Very cool.
So it's not just people fighting, it's how they feel about that moment in the battle, and and hopefully, I try to show that for each moment. It's not just people having a fight; there's an emotion attached to it as well. Right,
and in that very first scene of episode 3, obviously Beocca, spoiler alert if anybody doesn't know, Beocca dies very early, and then Uhtred goes into rage mode. And one thing that I found was very kind of a unique filming style was it was almost slow motion. It was kind of slow motion as he was fighting his way out of Bebbanburg. And I thought it really helped amplify the anguish that he was kind of going through. Could you talk a little bit about some of the choices you made in that battle?
Yeah, interestingly, for that opening sequence, sort of just anecdotally, that was my first, those 4 days to film that were my first 4 days of filming, which is, usually you want like 2 people in a tent talking.
You want a minor scene to warm up, right?
Yeah, straight in with Beocca's death.
Wow.
But and what was interesting, that had to be very, very planned as well, because it's 4 days of action and then the boat stuff, and so it's all storyboarded. And when I started on this show, obviously every director says this about all their shows, but I wanted these episodes to just be brilliant, really, really fantastic, partly because I'm the first woman to do it. Yes. And it's action, and I wanted it to be better than any. So I was, said to all the HODs, I want it to be better than anything you've done. I want us to really. Some people showed up with stuff,
Yeah.
And the DOP I was working with had this idea we were always going to shoot 50 frames so we could slow it down when we wanted. But then he said, why don't we do it past 12 frames? It meant that, you couldn't change the speed in post, but it meant different. I think that's the effect you're talking about. At moments we go to that.
I think so.
And it's just to give it a different feel, but also to sort of try and use something different to be in with Uhtred. Slow-mo works, and it works brilliantly. That's why people use it all the time. But just try and find something different. And he'd used that effect before, and he showed me it. We did a little test, and I just thought, it's worth a go. It's worth a go, and to try and be in that character's head. in a different way.
Exactly. Okay, I'm glad you said that. That's what you were going for, because
Yeah.
that's how I felt watching it. And a lot of people talk about The Last Kingdom as being very realistic, the filming style. And to me, even though it was in slow motion, it was like, have you ever thought about something tragic that's happened in your life? It's almost like everything else slows down. And that was really, I really like that choice.
Oh, good. Well, I think, it is realistic, The Last Kingdom, but I think if you look at over the series, it's evolved.
Absolutely.
I think it was the first series. It was all following in front, handheld. Now there's definitely that, and that style is lovely, and it works really well for the show. And I love shooting that way. But also there are more composed shots and cranes, and certainly that's what I want to do in my episodes, and drones, so you can mix it up a bit, but keeping that sort of core visual that was set.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then going into further in that episode, one of the big parts of our talks about The Last Kingdom is the scenes of camaraderie within the group. Because a lot of dramas, I think they always stick to like negative drama between characters to make drama. Yeah. But I really like what we call bro moments in the group. The Uhtred and Finnan moment at the top of the hill there. Can you tell us about that scene? Was that all written down, or because that was a very emotional scene?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with the actors before I started filming with them, one-on-one.
Oh, cool.
Especially with Alex, because he had this huge journey to go on in my episodes, huge loss, and then the recovery and the father-son dynamic, losing a father and having to become a father. It was huge for him. One of the things we all spoke about actually was that those bro moments, as you call them, and how actually with that scene on the hill, it is Finnan doing what he can for him, and then also covering for him when he goes back down to the rest of the guys.
Yes.
To sort of say, he's okay, don't worry. So he's shaken back, I think, but he knows what he needs to do and knows he'll get him back. And I was really interested. I'm really interested in emotion, and to see male characters, these warriors, being able to show it, or not being able to help showing it.
Absolutely. I think you do it well, the actors do it well, and you help capture it well, and especially in episode 3. And one moment particularly that was kind of nostalgic that I really liked is when they were leaving Bebbanburg and the pull. And I don't know if it was deliberate, but it just brought me back and Steve back to season 2 on the slave ship. And it was like Uhtred's reached his lowest point, since that lowest point, it's like his next lowest point. It's kind of how we interpreted it. Yeah.
I mean, it was a real joy to be able to go into that emotion of it. And it was really important to, Alex and I worked quite hard together before we got to any of the filming, in plotting his emotional journey. So it wasn't repetitive. Because he has those moments where he's on the hill or he's by the lake, and it sort of culminates in him burying the cross. So it was just, we both really want to make sure that each moment was different for him, and that it was moving and changing, so he could get to that end point to lay it all to rest and to get on with it.
Kind of going through the stages of grief, I guess. Yeah. He shows anger and then despair, and very cool. Yeah.
And then looking at the ways that affected his relationship with his son.
Yes, yeah.
And how that anger, what that anger is about. Is it about him or is it not about him? And where Finnan is also the peacemaker in that, which was that they're great scenes to do, because they're those scenes, they're full of what's not said, which is the most interesting thing.
Oh, it is interesting. Yes. Yeah. And it kind of had, I guess, Uhtred really needed it to be his son to be the one to say, I'll be with you, or, pretty much tell him I got your back, for him to kind of push him forward. Very cool.
Yeah. And that scene was like 4 a.m, I remember.
Really?
In a tent. Yeah, 4 a.m. in a tent, pouring down, and we were all shattered after a week of nights. So there was a real sort of rawness to the atmosphere in that tent, just the 3 of us there, rehearsing, because of all that had gone and where we were, and just the sort of, the physicality of that evening. can really help.
Wow.
So then after that, a big emotional episode, you get into the battle. And like you told us, you had to create a battle plan for this. What were some big things that I guess you wanted to see from this, going into it?
Well, I wanted it to feel really grubby.
Okay.
I wanted it to be elbows and knees and dirty and not sort of, no elegance to it, and when I spoke to the stunt team about that, I just said, I just want to keep shooting. I don't want to go in for close-ups separately. I want it to all be part of the action. And the camera team were great. They, it was quite incredible actually how we just did lots of very long takes and incorporated all the detail within the one take, which is what I wanted. I sort of feel when I'm watching action, if it's too cutty, I don't believe it.
Okay. Yeah.
I can see why they've, or I don't enjoy it as much. In terms of the visual style, that's what I wanted the feeling to be. So it was just messy, and that the camera could follow everything, and I wouldn't have to edit too much. And then it was about, I wanted there to be highs and lows,
Okay.
So I'm not a massive action watcher. I don't want to, watch action for the sake of it. I'll watch it if there's something interesting about it. So I wanted there to be a real journey in it for the audience. And then I think the only thing I wanted that wasn't there, besides the trench, in the script was when I read it, all those emotional moments for the characters were there, but no one in the script said well done or said anything actually to Ethelfled. And she'd done such an amazing thing, and and she's a historical figure. We learn about the Battle of Tettenhall in school here.
Oh, really?
And and
Cool.
I said to the showrunner, no one says anything to her. She's done this. It's huge. And actually, they wrote Oldhelm saying, you did it, or something. You did it, my lady. The equivalent of well done. And that was the only change I wanted, really, just for it to mark that moment, because what she did was huge.
Oh my God.
And she, as a true female, historical character, people don't know about her as much.
Her story needs to be told, and I think it is. And I think anybody who's listening to this right now who doesn't realize Ethelfled was real, do the research. It's amazing the things that
it's amazing. And actually, it's really, really interesting. I was, I started the job and I was listening to the radio back home, and Radio 4 just had a 15-minute program about her. And it was like, it's called Great Lives, and how the sort of, she's really interesting warrior.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Because in history, she really did. She was really, her army at least was really at the Battle of Tettenhall, along with Edward, and they joined together to fight off the Danes. And Ethelfled in history is known for helping fight the Danes off for Mercia, which was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it comes off in the episode that Ethelfled is doing something against all odds. She doesn't have her full army. She summoned the Fjords, and she's got Uhtred's gang. The Welsh do show up, which is pretty cool. But she's doing something against all odds, and she's doing it because she knows it's the right thing to do. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I like the whole thing of just trying to get that vision of England. I felt like she was the one really on track with that this season, and Edward had sort of fallen off because there's even a point where Uhtred's like, hey, we've got like 5 guys here guaranteed to fight, but he doesn't know everyone else coming. And she's like, I'll stay anyways. It's just
and
we need to do.
It's fantastic to she's a female character who's not only concerned with love, she's concerned with bigger things than that. It's great to direct that sort of character and also to play, I would imagine. And Emily enjoys playing her. Yeah,
definitely.
The stakes are bigger.
They are, and Uhtred gives her an out, I think, right before the battle. He's like, nobody's going to think badly of you if you back down.
Yeah.
But she stands up, and it's very cool. So speaking of introducing the Welsh there.
Yeah.
So you, in your episodes, I think is the first time we meet them. So what were some of your ideas about how you wanted them to kind of look to us as the audience?
So when, thinking of the battle, which is the, where you see the most in my episodes, I was really, to sell the battle and to sell that it's big, we need those big wide shots as well as those, the big drone shots, the shots from the hill. And what I was really worried about was how would we tell which side was which.
Oh yeah,
there's so many different there's 5 groups that are sort of all intermingled. How can we make each group look different? And so I wanted the Welsh to look different, and the costume designer came up with this lovely red for them to wear, and it was a red, but it was a red that worked. It worked on screen because sometimes it doesn't. And I remember the first time she showed me her ideas, I just said, "This is great because they look so you'll be able to tell them apart." Yeah. And that's what I needed, the visuals to sort of say who was winning, who was where, and to give that distinction. Cool. Yeah, so that's what I wanted for the Welsh.
Yeah, I'd say this battle too was. I love all the other battles on the show, and they were always like exciting, and I love how they would evolve, especially the one in season 2 where they're going to Dunholm. But this one was probably the first one where I just felt tense the whole time and was worrying, who's going to die? Are they going to die there? And I was just on the edge of my seat.
You had us off the couch so many times going, yeah!
Good. That is really good. And, it's for the actors as well. They're incredible, It's really lucky in terms of I don't think we ever used stunt doubles,
Oh.
They just, because of the way I was shooting it, the doubles will be there in terms of, and they were standing for rehearsals and maybe the super wides, but they're really skilled at all that stuff, and it helps so much because I just do it for real and not have to worry about hiding anything, which is what I wanted that style of that battle to be.
Right.
But like you're saying, to have that tension of who will survive, mm-hmm. And there's that moment where getting that balance of keeping it real for the actors, but for them registering the emotion as well. So, for example, when Uhtred pulls the Dane off young Uhtred, that's a big father-son moment there, but actually they can't play that much of it because they have to then carry on fighting. Right. But, I think they did it great, actually. It's just you just see it slightly in their eyes, and then they carry on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great to do. It was a lot of hard work for everybody, for all departments, know.
Oh, we can't imagine the work that goes into it. Oh my God.
Oh God.
We can't even imagine.
The planning and every day after the battle, meetings, what have we missed? What do we need? How many people have we got tomorrow? And just the sheer exhaustion, especially for the camera team, I think, running around all day,
Yeah.
With the cameras but everyone, it was a great feeling at the end of that battle week when we finished,
Wow. So what kind of pressure does that feel like when you have a finite amount of time to do this? Do you really feel the heat of that pressure?
Yeah, I mean, we had a really good plan, and the plan, evolved, but I had a really supportive exec producer, Nigel, who, just sort of said to me, I as a director, I do take responsibility for finishing on time and making sure that we have, we do it within the time we've got. And I think we got, he understood that we needed more time than was probably there, and we got an extra bit of time. And I was worried about the weather because we had no weather cover, what would happen, But he just was incredibly freeing, actually. He just said, look, just do what you do, and if we don't get it all, we'll sort it out. And that is amazing to hear. Yeah, so he was great. Cool. He was great.
So I heard that you like in battles that you feel like there needs to be a story within the battle as well. And I think in the Battle of Tetton Hall, there's several going on at once. You got Canute and Uhtred's thing, and Brita that eventually comes in, and you got Ethelfled and Aldhelm. You have Ethelred. There's a bunch of them. A few of our favorites. Let's start with the Ethelfled Aldhelm moment. Could you talk a little bit about bringing this moment to life? Because that was my personal favorite moment from the battle, especially when it shows Edward was the one that saved them.
Yeah, I mean that is it's quite a short amount of screen time, but it's quite hard to get all of that in because there's a lot of the main characters there, you know, Jackdaw, and then we have to reveal Edward, and they're fighting, but it has to feel organic that she loses her weapon with all the fighting going on around. But actually, it was a lovely beat to do because it's about their relationship, you know, and she wants him to kill her, and he won't. And, you know, that's sort of mirrored later on with Breda and Uhtred.
Right.
You know, and that sort of love that is there, and he couldn't do it. And that, you know, but it was also sort of about making it clear why someone else didn't come in and kill her while she was, you know, so... Right. And that was obviously because Jackdaw was there and she's a prize and they want to take her. But yeah, that was a lovely beat to film because of that, the dynamic between them, and then what it means for Edward to come and save her.
Yes.
And again, it's one of those where Millie couldn't play too much of that gratitude because she had to carry on fighting. But I think she did it brilliantly. You see it, and then she picks up her sword and it galvanizes her to carry on. Absolutely.
I know that was when I saw Edward, that was one of the moments where I got off the couch and it was just like, yeah, Edward, let's go.
Yeah, he was great. He got off the horse, was roaring around. He was, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's an interesting energy, the battle week, you know, because everybody's there all the time and there are hundreds and hundreds of people, and the adrenaline has to be there for the actors, and they're all really anxious and keen that it looks authentic because that's part of the show. Yeah, it gives it something.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moment from the battle was probably at the end where Uhtred and Canute square off. And to me, we haven't had a real crazy one-on-one fight in a while. Probably my favorite before this. Well, I like the Ragnar and Kjartan one, but probably Ubba and Uhtred from season 1. It's probably my favorite. And then this one, though, was just so raw and brutal. It was, I guess that's what you were going for with it then, huh?
Yeah, completely. And it was about, you know, he is completely reckless because he thinks his child's been killed. And for us, you know, for me and the actors, it was about where that rage comes from and what it fuels him to do. And it's grief, you know, it's the loss of a child, you know, and it doesn't matter what it takes, he will go and find Uhtred. And yeah, I wanted it to feel like you didn't know who might win, you know, and that there was this rawness to it, and that's why they were rolling on the floor a bit, they were against a grey, you know, it was just sort of graphic faces, because I wanted it to feel like this man he will do anything because of what this other guy's done to his child, but then Uhtred is, you know, he's a good fighter. He's so skilled that he will be able to. And then that moment when Breda comes in, you know, and that was all revealed, it's huge to play, you know, for Emily, and it's all said in that moment to her. But I think they all did a great job, you know. And I was looking at Magnuss's death the other day, actually, and he's great, and you just sort of see, you know, it was, yeah, and that was hard, you know, the whole battle week, it was boiling. I can't tell you how hot it was.
Yeah.
You know,
that field during the summer.
Oh yeah, in Budapest, you know, it's really hot, and that was great. And it was about as well for me getting them the sort of rationality of it geographically. So they needed to be away from the battle.
Okay.
So that the people didn't come and help or stop them. Mm-hmm. So it's for me finding a believable way to get them to that location.
That's what I really liked about it. Is I hate when you see in a movie just two guys are squared off in the middle of everyone. I mean, it'll look cool, but it's like, why is no one else like running into them at the very least on accident?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes no sense. So I you know, and I had to, you know, I think we did a drone shot of the Welsh people running into the woods, so then I could justify them why they were in that spot.
Because I think, was it like the Danes were like retreating because, you know, Mercy had come and Wessex had come and kind of the Welsh, and then they were just chasing them down, right?
Yeah, and he sees, there's a moment I knew I had to get, was he sees him running into the woods.
Yes.
Canute sees Uhtred, and so that's like, okay, that's all I need, and then we can cut to them in the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned about how you really like to emphasize human emotion. I think Canute's a great example of that. And even going back to when he first learns that they think his son is dead, and like you said, like it just distorts his decision making from that point on. And Brita is kind of like the common sense, like we're in a good spot, let's not ruin this, So you did that well. It was
cool. You think about those episodes, suppose it's all sort of human emotion is there, Great scripts.
It's great script writing, and then bringing it to life on the screen, the actors and the directors and the camera operators, you all deserve a lot of credit for that. So it was super, super well done.
Thank you. And a lot of fun.
What was your favorite beat from the battle then?
I think I really liked, and I suppose, is it a beat? It's not, I really like the standoff just before it starts. And they're sort of in their triangle, and you see them coming over the hill, and they stop, and there's just that sort of, what's going to happen? Are they going to get away with it? And just to see in Canute's face that sort of, Brita thinks there's something wrong, but he doesn't care. He's going for it,
Yeah.
For me, that was it, and then it'll just happen.
That was such a great shot too. I mean, that was a great shot when they're all lined up. It made me, even though it made me think of like the Avengers or something, when you
Yeah, I just said to them, I know they were great. They were very trusting actors, and I said, I don't want you all to stand in a line. I want you to sort of be like a triangle.
Yeah.
Because it just looks good. It just looks better, and they went with it, and it was great. And then Finan said the prayer.
The prayer. Oh my God.
Which he came with himself, actually, Mark. That wasn't scripted.
Oh.
So he said to me, look, I found this little prayer. Do you mind if I say it? And I was like, absolutely. And then when I got in the edit, I called him and said, just record a longer version because I can run it through the whole of that bit, actually. So he's a very thoughtful actor.
Wow. Yeah, because the opening there when he's saying the prayer and everyone's just coming down to square off and you don't know what's going to happen yet. I mean, that was just like in the chest pounding,
Good. I'm pleased, really pleased.
So you mentioned getting to the edit, and I imagine a lot of stuff had to get cut out of that battle, and I'm sure with a lot of the other rest of the episodes too. Were there any big things that you kind of wish they could have kept, but there just was not any time in that battle? Any moments? Or do you think you got them all? Yeah?
I think they're all there. I mean, certainly, yeah, we got everything. We got everything, actually. Yeah, I mean, like I say, it was all, we knew all the beats we had to get, and they're all quite big beats.
Yeah.
In terms of for the rest of the series. So I don't think I could have dropped one. And I think we got it all. I mean, the sort of aftermath of the battle, when Uhtred comes back and talks to Ethelflaed and the Welsh are getting the spoils of war, we had to do that very quickly. We had hardly any time to film that. And from a director's point of view, I mean, it felt very natural when we did it, and it was sort of we told that we did that in a couple of shots, but there wasn't much time to do that. I'd have liked a bit more time to do that.
Oh. Yeah.
But I think we got it all.
I mean, it seems like every character gets their beats. It doesn't really feel like anybody is lacking anything. It was really well done, which I imagine is a very challenging thing to do with that many people in the battle. I don't think we've ever had a battle with like everyone in it before. I don't know.
No, I think they said it was the biggest battle they've done in Last Kingdom, which is great. It's just, it's really rewarding when you at the end of it, when you think, God, we did it. We're all exhausted and like 10 years older, but we managed to do it.
Yeah. So outside of the battle, were there any other favorite moments you had from those two episodes?
All the emotional stuff we've talked about, all the Finn and Uhtred stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene, actually, that I can't remember which episode it's in now, and it's around a dinner table with Edward and his mum, and it's a sort of, they're talking about it's not it's a political scene, and those scenes, when you read them, they can be they're quite tricky to film because it's lots of people, lots of eye lines. There's lots of people around the table talking about, what could potentially be sort of quite boring political stuff. But I think I really enjoyed doing that scene because it was, again, it was about what's not said. What people knowing what they shouldn't know and knowing the other one, it's all about that, and what they want but not saying what they want. And it's Edward, at the end of the scene, Edward leaves, and Ellsworth is really shaken by it.
Okay.
And that scene was a great scene as well because you sort of you get to rehearse it properly and sit around the table and talk about it, and like you would in theatre really, and then shoot it. I liked it all. It was all. I like the bits with the boys when Knut's guys came and they were trying to break in. It was all great.
That was another very cunning Uhtred moment there too, throwing over one of the
clever,
already headless bodies. Very clever. Yeah, it was cool. I like that reveal too. And just real quick, also. The end of episode 3, I really love the shot of the Danes at night coming over the hill with the torches. Lovely shot.
Yeah. It's to set up that sort of that tension.
Yeah, you can't stop.
It's always that thing, isn't it? Should the audience know what the characters don't or not? And I think that that choice in the script for the audience to know but them not to just creates a great tension.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of another moment of tension, I'd be remiss if we did not talk about that moment of Uhtred and Brita where he doesn't kill her. Watching that, like when it shows his face, like what I think is like I imagine all of their history in my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, completely. And those two actors in that moment, you're right. You see what's gone before.
Yeah.
Don't you? There's all that. It's that look, and it's almost you can just go through their
in your own mind
together.
Yeah.
And there are so many times in the series, throughout the seasons where they miss each other, for one reason or another. And this was a big miss, and you sort of understood both their points of view.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what was another great the shipwreck at sea. That was really great to film.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And another thing we really liked is that Ellsworth, that she was really emphasized as someone with a lot of knowledge, and even though they weren't giving her a lot of power, she kind of went, under behind their backs, and you had those emotional scenes with Edward. But I really liked how Ellsworth was shown with that kind of knowledge, and she was a really key person.
Yeah, and I suppose when Alfred was alive, she didn't have the opportunity to show it so much. But she's got a really. It's interesting because people's responses to her character, but actually she's doing what she thinks is the best thing.
Yeah,
I suppose they all are, But it's just interesting that this is what is the right thing to do for England, for the bigger picture. It's great.
Awesome. So we also just found out yesterday that season 5 of The Last Kingdom was announced.
Yes.
Can we expect you back? Can you tell us anything if you're coming back or not?
Oh, you know what? I would love to. If the dates work, I would love to. And the guys know that. I'm so pleased for them. I'm really pleased, and I would go back in a heartbeat.
Very
Witcher
cool.
Permitting. I'm on The Witcher for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. But it's such good news, isn't it?
Oh, it's great news. Yeah. I mean, how could you not with how good it's been? We knew it was going to happen. We just didn't know when, and it's just exciting.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And they are, there's something when you're all away together, you sort of bond more, I suppose. And the actors are such a great group, and they are really close and also very welcoming. And it was a great sort of special experience being out there in Budapest doing it,
Absolutely.
It's great.
So you got some very exciting things coming up, like we talked about. We'll be watching Cursed, and then we will be watching The Witcher someday.
Good.
Is there anything else right now in the future for you, or are those the two big things?
those are two big things, you know.
Okay.
You just sort of hope everything gets back to normal soon, and you know, we it's great that it's starting to happen again, but I suppose it's just sort of project by project now.
Okay.
You know, I think Cursed, it's great that Cursed is coming out, and I think people will love it. It's such a fresh take on that legend. And then I'll be back to work on The Witcher, which seems to go down brilliantly the first season, which would be fun to do. And then we'll see what next year brings.
Yeah.
No more homeschooling, hopefully.
No more homeschooling. How about goals? Do you have any other goals with your career?
I mean, you know what? I think that I'd like to maybe tell stories that women don't often get to tell.
Yeah.
You know, like, they've never had a female before do the women in action. That's why it's appealing to me, because it's sort of been a closed shop in the past, you know, and I think good stories, just good stories.
Well, you've proven that women can do it just as good as the men have done it with episodes 3 and 4 for sure. Real quick, what other kind of research did you do getting ready for The Last Kingdom?
Well, I rewatched all the season before. I like to spend a lot of time with, talk to the writers actually, and really examining the script. But also I watched every battle scene that's ever been made, I think, to see what I liked, what worked, what didn't work. Yeah, I felt like I didn't want to, it's English history, so I know a bit about it.
Okay.
But I wanted to just go with what was on the page rather than what was historically, accurate. That didn't interest me so much. The script's the thing for me.
Very cool.
And as a director, I just try and watch everything.
Right.
What are some other things that you like to watch or you're a fan of?
Well, I just tend to try and watch every single film that's going, because you can always learn something as a director. You can always learn, even if it's what not to do.
Yeah.
And I try and watch all genres. Yeah, and TV. I mean, at the moment there's so much good TV around.
Yeah.
Isn't there? Sort of spoilt for choice with all the different platforms, and so I try and watch everything.
Were there any particular movies or shows that helped inspire you for what you did with The Last Kingdom?
I don't know about inspire. I just sort of, like I say, I just watched a load of action stuff.
Yeah.
And then there was one great day actually where I got everybody to come to my flat, my apartment, and in Budapest, and it was the stunt designer, the VFX guy, the DOP, and the designer, and I just sort of said, what have you always wanted to do in a battle that you've not been able to do? Or I want this happen, but a different take on it. What could we do? And then you look and the stunt guy's rolling around on the floor. We could do this. And the VFX guy saying, I could get a melon and that could be Snapper's head. And, so it's about just wanting to learn from those other battles, but just have a different take on it. So it's not repeating it, and to get other people's input on that.
Very cool.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Yeah, do you have anything else to say for the fans out there listening?
Oh, just that it's such a lovely show to work on. It's that camaraderie between everyone is real, and it's a lot of fun to make, and just a lot of talented people working on it. And I'm very pleased that they've got season 5, and I'm sure it will be incredible.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we hope to see your work on season 5 if the timing works out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Been lovely to chat. Lovely to chat.
Yes, thank you for joining us. And for those listening, if you want to check out more from Sarah Gorman, check out her IMDb, check out Cursed, and in the future, The Witcher, and then all her other work before this too. Anywhere else they can find you if they want to keep track of you?
Instagram is cool. Sarah O'Gorman UK.
And then also, of course, please follow and subscribe to the Screen Chronicles. We'll have more coming out. And we appreciate everybody listening. But for now, goodbye from the Screen Chronicles and Sarah Gorman.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.